Hey everybody, welcome back to the Pixelists, the podcast about all the nerdy things we love and enjoy. I'm Will, that's Blake, and today we are here to talk about a very special episode of Critical Role Campaign 3. Oh, but before we dive into that, how are you doing today, my friend?
Good. It's hump day. That's okay.
It is Wednesday, my dudes.
It is. It is. How are you doing today?
Sorry, I cleared my throat and I didn't hear what you just said there at the end.
Why do we always have such like awkward back and forth? Even like simple questions. It's like, sorry, what did you say? I said, how was your day going?
It's
That
good.
was it.
It's good.
You got a walk in today, right?
I got my walk in. Been trying to get a little bit more active recently. So,
I got on the bike yesterday.
Oh,
Felt a little motivated by your Discord channel, you know?
Yeah, how's that?
So-
How that? You got the Peloton, right?
Yeah. Well, now
I'm
I
jealous.
sound like a, rich douchebag.
No, I want one. So I'm jealous.
No,
You
it's a
do
good
like the little
investment.
classes?
Yeah, there are classes, but then there's also like a free ride. This is like an advertisement for Peloton, I guess. There's like a free ride, and then there is a like nature style class thing that's kind of cool. But there's like a lot of versions. There's not just Peloton. There's a lot of like, digital bike things that you can get. But for me, I just thought I would have less excuses if I was like, oh, it's too cold outside.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
I get it. But hey, man, as long as I'm not trying to speak for you, but as long as we're getting something in, I
True.
mark it as a win.
True.
Getting some activity. But yeah, I even you'll know what I'm talking about. But I walked over to the co-op as part of my walk today, and I got myself a special coffee. So I'm about to pop this open for our ep, and I'm excited.
Yeah.
Man.
Yeah, our co-op's pretty awesome. I've noticed, just since we're doing like a lifestyle podcast now, I've noticed that the veggies there last longer than from Walmart.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I guess.
Yeah,
like I got green onions from Walmart, and like 2 days later they were like droopy and sad. But even like 1 day later. Oh, bro! One time I had a delivery from Walmart, and it was already like full on,
like brown.
Not brown, just softy boy. It's nice and firm.
Yeah.
That's how I like my green onion, among other things.
Yeah, that might be on your whoever picked your stuff that day. They got to be better than that, You got to pick the ripe ones. Or I don't know if ripe applies to onions, but you know what I mean.
But point being, for the co-op, I feel like day 4, day 5, cracking open an egg, making an omelet, slicing up some green onions on top. They're nice and spry.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
You throw a bone in there, you got a stew going.
In your omelet? Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, we're talking episode 51, the Apogee Solstice. It's here.
Yep.
It's happening. I wouldn't say it's happened. It's happened and it's happening.
Mm-hmm.
And we got a lot to talk about today.
We do. A couple of quick announcements before we dive in. We did hit 5,000 subs. There is a video on the channel. If you haven't checked it out yet, definitely head on over there. We talk more about the giveaway, and you will actually need to comment on that video in order to enter the giveaway. We will be selecting with one of those RNG websites that just picks a random YouTube comment again on that video. So make sure you comment on there. And again, thank you guys for helping us reach that milestone. Oh, just punched my mic. Other than that, unless you have anything to add on the giveaway.
No. Yeah.
Other than that, I just lost my train of thought. Oh yeah, Discord. You mentioned it earlier. It made me think of it. If you guys aren't part of the Discord community already, definitely check us out. We're coming up on the new episode of Critical Role tomorrow, and we've always got a group that comes together and we live chat during the episodes. It's always a really good time. And other than that, Worlds Beyond Number, The Wizard, the Witch, and the Wild One, new campaign from, some of your potential favorite people. I don't know why. I'm assuming they're your favorite people. Maybe they're not. But from Brennan Lee Mulligan, Erica Ishii, Lou Wilson, and Abria Iyengar, and produced by Taylor Moore. Really great new audio fiction D&D podcast. Blake and I are going to be covering it. Our discussion on episode 1 and our recap on episode 1 is on the channel. And episode 2 just came out yesterday, so we'll be obviously covering that as well. But just for our Critical Role people, if you haven't checked that out and you like Critical Role, I think I can speak for Blake as well when I say this. We would both highly recommend it. Um, it's good stuff.
It's real good.
It's real good. Other than that, I think that's all I got. So, if you're new to the channel, you know that, or if you're new to the channel, you don't know this. But we are going to be launching into our recap because we like to recap every episode of this long form content before we dive into actually discussing it. And if you find yourself on that recap video and you want to see our full discussion, it'll be linked down in the description box below. But yeah, without further ado, if you want to take us off here, my friend.
Yeah, so this was episode 51. The Apogee Solstice is the episode we've been waiting for a long time. And it did not disappoint. There's a lot of things that happened in this episode, so definitely bear with me as we cover everything. The episode, if you remember, the previous episode kind of ended with this conversation with the couple of Mighty Nine members with the ground team. And this episode actually opens up with the air team. And the air team, basically, we have F.C.G. who casts sending over to Orem and is basically like, what's going on? How are things happening? And Orem's like, yeah, we met a couple of people. Like there's a lot happening down here. And basically, the first part of this episode is Fern and F.C.G. trying to decide should they abandon ship, so to speak, and get down to the ground team to help them if they might need them. But there's one sticky little issue, and that would mean leaving Ira with Captain Vandus. So they want to kind of size up. They want to size up Ira a little bit to make sure he's not like a murderous crazy person. And is like, hey, what's your 5-year plan? Like, what exactly do you do here? It's kind of the impression I got. And finally, what ends up happening is F.C.G. decides to leave it to the Changebringer and decides to flip the coin. And heads as we stay, tails as we go. And sure enough, it's time to go. So they get dropped off and wish Captain Vandus well, who's kind of like, oh, you're leaving me with this guy. Great. And back down on the ground team, we do have another patrol come by, basically similar to one previously, where the party basically, there's gonna be a lot of deception checks that are going to happen over the next couple hours of this episode. Ultimately, because the party is trying to push farther into the excavation site, and the excavation site is on high alert because they don't want this whole plan to get ruined. So they pass the deception check, sort of just explain, oh, the water's broken, we're just trying to get going. And ultimately, that patrol moves on. Next up comes F.C.G. and Fern, who are sort of like wading through the sandstorm, not really sure where they're going, and conveniently comes across our party. F.C.G. actually decides to try to get inside of the warder and basically link up with the warder, and he is essentially ultimately successful and sort of, like robot Gundam style.
That's a good sound effect.
Thank you. Working on my DM voice. And basically takes control of the warder, and a bunch of the people like pile in. Orem climbs into the hand of the warder and like pretends that he is a prisoner, and those who are not inside the warder or being pretending to be captive are wearing their Paragon's Call or Ruby Vanguard outfit. The party then pushes farther into the excavation site. Once again, there will be a multitude of deception checks that are going to happen. They do come across an armored General Ratanish, who is sort of making his way through this excavation site as well. And we do get a cool little just RP moment from Orem where he does his druid craft to conjure some red cherries or berries and like smashes them on his face to look like he's injured. And again, there's a successful deception check, and Imogen basically lies and says that this is, an invader that they captured. And Ratana says, oh, I almost feel sorry for the guy. That's, interesting. But all that to say, they push farther inside. Imogen is looking for her mother and does, in fact, see her mother, who's sort of floating and flying around, putting up sort of the last, with her telekinesis, is sort of attaching these last metal pieces to the Malleus Key, this massive device, far larger than what they saw in the Feywild, with massive power cores. And ultimately, they decide to not talk with Liliana for now, but to push deeper into the base of this Malleus Key, which is where they find two large caverns. And in one of the caverns, one Adahan Thule walks into and begins chatting with some of the um, uh, cult members, to say the least, on
Yep.
sort of like last decisions. And so the party, in good sense, decides to go to the other cavern, which once again has some power cells and things set up. And they start thinking about, okay, how can we basically blow this thing up? Like, what's the plan? There are a few guards who are in this room, and one of them asks. I think Matt even describes them as an exaltant. One of them even asks Imogen, like, what are you doing here? Like, what exactly is going on here?" They make a group deception check, and it seems like they may have done so successfully until, as the guards are sort of walking by them and leaving, the exaltant sends a message to Imogen that's basically like, let's see what you're made of. And then combat ensues. So it's actually a very quick round of combat. They take care of them extremely quickly. I think it's only one round or maybe the start of a second round.
Yeah, real quick.
And once they take them out, they do take one person prisoner. Chetney basically is like, hey, surrender. It's the last surviving person of the guards. Surrender, or you're going to be like one of them. And the soldier or the guard, whatever, is like, this isn't worth it. And you kind of get an impression that there are the exaltants and the rudest born people here, but then there's also the impression I got were that there's quite a few like hired hands, sort of like
Yeah.
mercenaries who are here just sort of doing grunt work. And this is what this person essentially is. They pat down the bodies of the other guards and they find a locket of presumably a daughter of one of them. So the party kind of feels bad for for killing this bad guy. But basically, they ask this prisoner, like, hey, how does all this stuff work? The prisoner's like, I really have no idea. I just know that the big crazy man, the old guy, wants to basically, do this big plan. That's kind of all I know. So as they're chatting, they also, Lawton is looking at the scribe ball and begins to notice that Adahan is moving. F.C.G, who's been keeping guard outside of this cavern, and pretending like to move stuff and look busy, sees Adahan finishing in that cavern and now moving over to their cavern to basically inspect that one as well. There's a lot of panic, and we go to break. So that's the first half. You want to take it from there?
All right. Yeah. Good job. All right. A lot happens in this second half, so y'all bear with me. But we pick back up with basically everyone knowing that Adahan is now on the way, thanks to F.C.G conveying the information. And the group tries to kind of tidy up after this battle, and most of them try and hide. This is when Matt has Liam and Mauricia roll for Bo and Caleb, and they get a natural 13 and a natural 7, respectively. So not the greatest. Odahan then is like turning the corner to come down into this chamber when there is an explosion, and two of the machines emitting this like dispel magic cone have like detonated, presumably thanks to whatever Bo and Caleb are doing. Um, excuse me. This distracts Odahan, who goes and investigates, but Imogen kind of still just takes her shot here because even though Odahan is not like within sight range, she is still within her psychic lance's attack range, and so she does it. And it hits, like Odahan fails the save or whatever, but she does use a legendary resistance on it. So she does take some damage and she does look around, but she can't see where it came from. So she like continues on toward the distraction. The party thinks, okay, with this going on, this is our time to move. And so F.C.G sends a message to Ira telling him to launch the airstrike with the airship. The party in the chamber does attack some of these cables and arcane cores. causing some of them to detonate as well. But back in the main chamber, F.C.G., again, still in the body of this warder, um, makes their way to Rin's statue. And he's kind of in the central chamber now, where both Liliana and Ludinus are. So F.C.G. is like, okay, I'm going to try to sneakily grab Rin's statue here. But meanwhile, I'm going to pretend like I'm helping pick up debris from like this explosion that just happened. And I think he rolls poorly. I don't remember if it was like a
Yeah,
natural one.
it was bad.
I think it
There's
was
a
a
lot of
natural
bad
one though.
rolls in
Yeah.
this. When it matters, terrible rolls.
So as he's pretending to pick up this chunk of debris, he actually like kind of stumbles into it and knocks this whole wall over onto the Rin
Yeah.
statue, which we later come to find out that this has caused her arm to break off. Um, everyone kind of turns and looks, and FCG barely makes the deception check necessary, and everyone just assumes like it's this stupid robot, and Ludinus just like deactivates it, for like basically trapping FCG inside. So back to the main group. They're approached by more members of like the guard checking on things, but again, everyone's in disguises, and so they are able to successfully do a group deception check and kind of move past this. The party then exits the chamber, and they all hear a voice in their head simultaneously, and it's Ludinus. He's basically launching into this big speech that he's going to be giving for the next large chunk of the episode. And he basically says the timetable's been moved forward. I need everyone to come gather at the key. We then have Matt ask for another Liam and Marisha roll for Bo and Caleb, and we get a 6 and a 5, respectively. So continuing the really bad rolls. That's when they see Liliana and this mage hunter golem basically like descending down, and in the golem's hand, he is clutching Caleb like by the neck. Also, Beauregard is making her way, like walking down toward the Malleus key from higher up in the chamber, and she is seemingly being controlled by Liliana, who's like outstanding a hand toward her. Um, Ludinus speaks again and is thanking everyone for joining him, including Caleb and Bo, who he says, like, you've been a thorn in my side for years. How fitting that you will now have front row seats to your own failure. When Bo reaches down in the main chamber, they shackle her like up to the nines completely and chain her up. And again, Caleb is just being grasped by this mage hunter golem. And he also has a collar around his neck, which is like preventing him from casting magic. Ludinus then puts one of his arms into this machine, and it basically like starts powering up and lights up, and he fuels it with his own arcana. Liliana then parts her arms, which causes these like two plates, these armored plates on the machine to drop down, and we see that there is a dodecahedron in this Malleus key, like partially powering it as well. Ludinus then says it's time, and this like energy fills the chamber and locks everyone in place. And in the night sky above, the stars all start to like pass by, and hours seem to go by in seconds until Ruidus is kind of like held aloft in a way above the Malleus key. Ludinus then removes his hand from the device, and it's all like dark and withered now.
Yeah.
It's at this time that suddenly the airship appears above the key and starts plummeting down. Ludinus throws up a wall of force surrounding the Malleus key, and the airship just shatters against it, sending debris, fire, and basically chaos just all over below, killing tons of these vanguards and Paragon's Call people that have gathered here in Ruidusborn's. Ira and Xandis, however, did manage to dimension door out in time, as Laudna kind of can see them up higher in the excavation site. And she messages Ira and kind of quickly catches him up, saying, like, we destroyed one of the things. Like, what do you think? Can you destroy something? And Ira's like, I'll see what I can do. In the chaos below, Liliana casts like a mass calm emotions, essentially, basically chilling everyone out, and everyone like again turns to look at Ludinus, who is continuing his speech about the gods and, you know, kind of what they're doing here. Meanwhile, Imogen casts command, continuing her streak of like MVP command moves this campaign, on the Mage Hunter Golem to release Caleb, which it does, but again, Caleb does have this like spell collar around his neck, preventing him from doing anything really. Orem makes his way toward F.C.G. to try to help him get out of this now deactivated order that he's in, while Laudna and Ashton go to yet another set of power cores to try to destroy them. Chetney, meanwhile, goes invisible, and he is going to start to try to climb up this Malleus key, but he's failing at first because this is like a very difficult
Right.
endeavor. Aurum gets to F.C.G, helps F.C.G escape, but Liliana notices this happening and is about to like cast something when Imogen messages her mother and is like, "Mom," and basically tries to, talk her out of this. She's like, "It doesn't have to be this way." Like, and they have a brief conversation
Right.
with Imogen basically saying like, "How can you trust him?" And she says, "I just do." And then a rumble happens, and we're told that Ira has detonated yet another like set of cores and power supplies. Liliana sees him kind of darting out of this chamber, and she banishes him. So he's poof gone
Yeah.
back to the Feywild. Um, Ludinus continues his speech
maybe
saying,
maybe for good, by the way. We don't know.
well, yeah, more on that in a second.
Yeah.
Ludinus continues his speech saying, "I've worked selflessly for 1,000 years. Let me be your villain if it means your liberation forever." Laudna and Ashton detonate some more cores where they are, and like the residuum energy flowing into the Malleus key dulls a little bit. Then Ludinus says to the Rudisborns, like, "All right, it's time." And they all start to glow with like this red mist energy like flowing off of them, seemingly like empowering the device as well. Suddenly, the wind kicks up and a large boulder slams down in front of the Malleus key, and it is Keyleth in her earth elemental form. And she says, like, "By the Tempest, like, you must stop this." Ludinus looks down and says, "Right on time." And he casts Power Word Stun on her. And it's at this point that Odahan jumps out of the shadows and uses her shadow clones essentially to all surround Keyleth, who again is stunned. And she just starts wailing on her. Everyone that's around rolls initiative because they want to obviously help, but Odahan has the highest of these initiatives, and so she goes first. All of her attacks are with advantage because of the stun, and with her first attack, she knocks Keyleth prone, which then makes all the rest of her attacks do even more damage. Um,
This
so
is
I think,
fine.
I think she gets
No big
5
deal.
attacks amongst her and her clones, 2 of which are nat 20s, and then she action surges and does it all again. Um, and so she cleaves through the elemental form, goes through all of that HP. So Keyleth drops back to her normal form, and she's now cutting Keyleth like to ribbons. And as she goes for the heart strike, Matt describes this blur of shadows and feathers, and the blow is deflected. And then there before her is a masked figure saying, "Don't you dare." And the champion of ravens has showed up to protect her. Um, During this, F.C.G tries to dispel the collar on Caleb's neck, but it doesn't work. Aurum jumps off the warder where he was helping F.C.G and just unleashes his attacks into Odahan's backpack, which we found out is what's causing her shadow clones. And it has a super high AC of 25. He is able to get some hits, but it's just not enough damage to fully destroy it. So basically, the rest of Bell's Hells are like, let's finish this. But with such a high AC, they're all missing the backpack. Chetney, however, does go for Ludinus instead, but he's like swatted away essentially, and he actually gets impaled on a piece of the Malleus key. Um, Liliana, meanwhile, is actually holding her actions, being kind of torn because of Imogen being there and talking to her. So she's actually not really doing anything right now. Ludinus looks down at everyone and and smiles, and he's like, "Ah, the final piece, a sliver of divinity, the lens." And he snaps, and Liliana then casts a spell towards the champion of ravens, and all the mirrors around the excavation site like turn in, and this energy like all directs onto him and turns him into like this black orb, which she then like floats up and places into the Malleus key. Um, Ludinus says that the machine hasn't gotten quite enough power, but this will have to do. And as he's saying this, more airships start to appear overhead, presumably from Vasselheim. And they're just, excuse me, the Rudisborn's energy again is still like flowing off of them and filtering in. And Ludinus says, "Let us destroy what will unmake them." And this enormous beam of energy shoots out of the key, flying up into the sky toward Ruidus, and just the pure force of it like blows back all of these airships. And Ludinus screams, "For 1,000 years you couldn't stop me, and now it's too late." And he's just laughing as all like the Nexus energy and the Leyline
Right.
energy is tethering together. and the sky goes from pitch black to like red and white, to finally white, excuse me. And when this whiteness subsides, Ladna finds herself on the edge of a cliff with like this sulfurous smell hitting her nose and pools of strange liquid around, and she's in an unfamiliar landscape. She can see Ashton nearby and Orem. None of them are hurt, and in the far distance, they can still see Ruidus with the red beam of light emanating around it or toward it. We then cut to the rest of the party, who all find themselves in this like crystal sand, like snow. They cannot see Ruidus or Katha in the sky above, just stars. And Chetty recognizes where they are as the Crystal Sands tundra, which is near his hometown of Uthadern, half a
What?
world away.
What?
And that's where the episode ends.
Oh my gosh. All right. Well, that's our recap. If you're watching just the recap, click the link. We're going to be talking about this. You're going to want to talk about it too. So click the link to our full video. Will, what the heck?
What the heck, man?
This was nuts.
It was. First things first, what we think. I'll just dive into it really quick and toss it to you. I loved it. I thought this was a crazy episode for a bunch of reasons we'll get into here in a minute. But yeah, I loved it. What about you?
Yeah, loved it. Loved it. I try not to like be like a broken record about this, but like I always have like my enjoyment from like a audience, but then also it's always enjoyable to see the players enjoying a session. It's just like good D&D, I guess. And Travis screaming like, "What? No!" and like everybody getting so into it.
Yeah.
Like if I'm Matt, I'm going to bed like grinning ear to ear for how much my players loved the session. So yeah, loved the episode, thought it was amazing. And oh my gosh, like I'm so curious. I have so many questions now. I'm so curious what happens now.
Yeah. Yeah. We finally are getting on a more meta level. This has been what we've been wondering for like the past 6 months. Like what happens now? So we're finally kind of getting to that. Real quick, I don't want to spend too much time on this, but I was running high at the end of that episode. Like I watched this one live, start to finish. And so I immediately jumped to the Reddit just because I, was wanted to see what people were saying. And it wasn't all negative, but the things I saw were like negativity, and I was like, I can't deal with this. And so I closed it and haven't been back. So I don't know if that was just like in the moment people were like upset because
what were they
failed. I don't know. I didn't pay much attention to it because it wasn't the vibe I was trying to have in the moment. I was like, get this away from me. But yeah, I think the general vibe of what I was getting was just people being upset that they failed. And like,
guys, did you really think? Do you think that would have been satisfying for them to have stopped Ludinus at level 9 or level 8? Like after building to it for 30 episodes,
yeah.
Like, you really feel like that would have been satisfying? I mean, I think there's levels of failure and like levels of success. And even though like we didn't get that articulated, we've talked about this on the show before, how Matt's really good about creating levels of impact. And the most recent example I can think of, we've talked about it, is fighting Uk'otoa, Imogen trying to control the storm, Jester trying to control the storm. And Matt basically saying like, yeah, his legendary action's been affected because of what you did here. Still have to fight him. It's not like over now. And so even though we didn't like fully get that illustrated, at least yet, I think comments like Ludinus saying there's not enough power or like there's really no turning back. I mean, to me, those were nods to you guys have done things.
Yeah.
And also Ruidus is still in the sky. So I don't think this is over.
Yeah.
Yet.
I 100% agree with everything you just said. And some of it might have been just emotions running high because like I know some of the things, and I don't want to spend time on this, so I'll move past it after this. But people were being like mad that like Caleb and Bo were just immediately taken off the field, and Keyleth got like destroyed, and Vax, what happened to him. I don't know.
Yeah, okay.
I don't want to, I don't want to focus on the negativity, but that's just like the first thing I saw after I finished the episode. And so it just kind of disheartened me a bit because I thought this episode was amazing.
Yeah,
Um,
it's hard for me since I haven't read. I tried to get on Reddit yesterday, but the Reddit was down, so I couldn't get on the subreddit. It was down for I think a few hours. I'll just say, kind of echo what I just said, which is if your players are having a great time,
yeah,
it's great D&D. And like no one, not having read those comments, I don't know exactly what people were referring to, but like the fact that there have been sessions where you've seen the players like kind of battle with Matt to get like a little, just one more inch of, well, come on, can it be this? Or, and like they were enamored. Like to me, that is the signal that it was a great session.
yeah. I'm right there with you, 100%. Um, and there's like a lot to talk about this episode, but just segueing into that freaking Vax moment and just the reaction that everyone had,
Oh my gosh.
that was just so good. I tweeted out like that clip, and so at the risk of repeating myself to some of you guys that follow us on Twitter, that might be one of the most hype moments across all the campaigns for me. And I was curious. I know you've seen Legend of Vox Machina. I know you've seen
Yeah.
some of campaign one, so you have a familiarity. But I was curious, like, how hard did it hit for you?
So I doubt it hit as hard. And we've talked about this a few times, like how certain things haven't, like I'm jealous of it not hitting as hard as it has for other people, like the return to Whitestone and seeing
Hmm.
all that stuff. Um, from seasons 1 and 2 of Legend of Vox Machina and like the budding relationship between them, and also kind of wondering what has happened to Vax between Legend of Vox Machina, or from what we know
Yeah,
from Critical Role to present time. Extremely satisfying. I was super giddy about it. Like as soon as he began describing the feathers, I was like, oh no. And
yeah,
then I loved the "don't you dare"
yes.
delivery. Was, and I texted you and you knew exactly. I thought, I wonder if he's gonna know what I'm talking about. And you knew exactly what I was
I
talking
had been
about.
waiting. I had been waiting.
Um, yeah, I had chills. I thought it was phenomenal. I wish I'd had the experience that you had had of campaign one, but maybe when campaign five's out, I can have that moment. So
But
I don't
yeah,
know.
that I can't. Fingers crossed we get Bell's Hells animated. That moment is gonna be insane if we get to see that. Um, so yeah, I couldn't
But
stop thinking about that moment in
I'm
particular.
I'm bummed how short lived it was. With he's now a little
Yeah,
black orb,
yeah.
So
Which there's
which
there's so much to talk
sorry,
about just with that. Go ahead though.
yeah. No, I was actually about to say like, well, I don't want to get us off track if we're not ready to get into it yet, but
We might
it
as well. I mean, we could just jump
yeah,
around.
I mean, I feel like we're gonna have to. You guys bear with us because we have so many things to kind of like piece together and talk about. So it might seem kind of scattered, but I loved. For me, it was a callback to Calamity about how um, Vespin needed the bow
Yeah,
to
or
break.
it was Laren, right? Or was it Vespin?
They
Was it
both.
both? It was both of them,
Laren
right?
needed
Yeah.
it because it was evidence from Vespin's ritual site. Vespin used it originally to break open
Hmm.
the lock on the
That's right.
door.
But then she used it too, right? At the end?
Right.
Yeah, okay.
Right. Correct. So I just love sort of the callback of sort of like the rules of Arcana. Like if we're going to be doing divine things, like we need an
Piece of
essence of
divinity, yeah.
exactly. And so Vax showing up was just perfect for playing into that. Um, and I'm curious what that means for him now. Like
Yeah.
I don't know. I'll let you respond. I don't want to. I could literally just keep ranting and rambling for like 20 minutes. Like, what if this? So I want to make sure I'm giving you space. So
No, yeah, you're fine. But yeah, I had that same exact thought with the Planetar's bow from Calamity. Which I don't want to gear us off track, but because I want to keep talking about this Vax thing in particular. But speaking of, we did get confirmation that Ludinus is over 1,000 years old, which is something that you and I had been
yeah.
speculating about. They're
And the
also
calamity was when, by the way,
say again, sorry.
when was the calamity?
I think it was around then. We're in
Okay.
843 divergence is like the year.
Yeah.
So 840 40 years ago was the divergence, and the calamity was like right before that. So,
Well, the calamity though was 1,000 years, I think. I think
I,
Brennan talks about 1,000 years of like shadow and dust, but I don't know if that was canon or make an offhand comment in the epilogue.
I do remember that, but was it 1,000 or was it? I thought it was hundreds.
Oh, maybe you're right. Yeah, maybe you're right. Yeah,
So I think I think we don't know the
yeah,
exact start and finish of
yeah.
it,
Okay,
but with the
but
divergence being 800 years ago and he's 1,000, he was probably there for some of it at least.
yeah. So I think our theory of him being from Aor is starting to check out.
Yeah, or at least from that time,
Right.
if he's literally from Aor or not. But yeah, and we already knew that he dealt with dodecahedrons from campaign 2, but here front and center, the dodecahedron was like a linchpin of the Malleus key. So
And this is these are Luxon beacons,
the
right?
Luxon beacons. So
Yeah.
again, we don't know that he's been consecuting, and like that could be how he's so old. Um, or maybe he has some
But
other way that has extended his life.
But to piece together some things we talked about previously, we talked about when we were talking about like the Luxem beacon and basically I remember I'm kind of losing what we said, but it was around I can't remember if we were talking about even like Legend of Vox Machina or whatever it was, but and like in terms of like I was gonna say the Dusk Maven, what's the Taldore the Matron of Ravens.
Oh, same thing.
Yeah, right. But I couldn't remember the
Yeah, yeah.
other phrasing for it. But how her mission to Vax was so important because their souls were important. They needed to move on. And I don't know if it was in this conversation, but we talked about how the power of a soul was so much like robust potential and energy.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's interesting that it became a story point of like an actual massive power source.
Yeah.
So I love that these little details ended up, being part of Ludinus's plan. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Which, speaking of his plan, the man's playing 40 chess while everyone else is playing checkers. Speaking of the circling back to the Vax thing a little bit, one thing I'm not gonna say we called this. I'm not saying that, everybody, but it's one of the things we posited as the potential of when we were talking about that the pre-campaign 3 attack on the Arashari. Like, what were they after? Was it the residuum? One of the things we talked about, like, was it like a test run to try and figure out a way to deal with Keyleth?
Mm.
So it seems like it was, if not a legitimate attempt to get Vax then. Kind of either way, I
Yeah.
think
Right.
it was set up for this moment that we've gotten here now. Um, and it's just crazy because I think it also plays into the fact that the Paragon's Call. I'm trying to make sure I don't confuse them. Paragon's Call is the Odahan one, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That they worship her, the Raven Queen. I mean, so I'm wondering, like, is that at all legitimate, or was it just kind of another
Yeah.
peg in the ruse to get this final moment here? Because one thing, and I know I'm kind of jumping everywhere right now, but one thing Ludinus says during his like epic villain speech was that, like, he kind of admired the Matron of Ravens for
Yeah.
usurping a god, which
Yeah.
he
We killed. He says like we killed
yeah
one of you.
yeah, like, we got one of you.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering if there is like some true admiration there, and we know that the Matron of Raven is Ruidusborn. We found that out
Right.
somewhere. And we know that Ludinus could have been a contemporary of hers back in the
Right.
day. So
Yeah.
did they even know each other? And so is there
Oh.
any like legitimate admiration there, or was this all just a ruse? Because at the end of the day, she was a mortal that ascended to godhood, but now she is a god. She is what he hates. So I'm not sure where to draw the line on how he truly feels about her versus admiration versus this was all just a ploy to get the lens. Do you have any
Yeah.
thoughts on that?
I think it definitely could be a little bit of both in that because I think the guard even who's taken prisoner says like they tell us to put it on, like wear this or something like that. So I think there is a bit of a ruse there, and you joked about like 40 chest. 40 chess. Why I keep saying chest? 40 chess, and it was all very much the monsters know what they're doing vibe. If you
Hmm.
checked out that material for DMing, in that the villain knows what they're doing, they're smart, they're capable just as much, if not more, than the players. And so I could totally see this being something that's designed to bring in, to lure Vax in, I guess. And then separately, the whole like right on time comment. I mean, it just, for me, it makes me wonder, i- were they scrying on the party the whole time, like running interference, and like knew they were chatting, knew they were talking, knew the plan. Um, but it goes back to Bo and Caleb basically being like he's getting sloppy, almost like he wanted to be caught he wanted Keyleth to
Yeah.
show up.
Yeah.
So I do like how it all played out, and I on top of the ruse though, I think there is admiration, simply because of his speech of "we killed one of you," like we showed you like who's really in control, basically. Um, which what a big moment for for Ludinus, I guess.
Yeah. I actually loved
So
his speech, and we kind of touched on this at some point in our earlier episodes. Um,
it
kind
was
of
very.
wondering.
Sorry, go ahead.
I was kind of wondering, like, not that he's a good guy, but like he maybe actually does have, like, at least in his mind, like honorable.
Yeah.
Maybe that's not the right word, but good intentions in a way. Like it's not some grander ploy for his own power,
We
seemingly.
we don't know yet because
True.
there still is, if there will be a power vacuum, there may be an opportunity for ascension like the Matron of Ravens that
True.
he would take advantage of. But yeah, no, I mean I did like his, let me be your villain
Hmm.
line. That whole speech was very like, I kept thinking of like a Final Fantasy game, but like
Yeah.
the villain's like giving a speech and you're like subtly, like stealthily trying to like,
Yeah.
make your way through the crowd. Um, so I just a random aside to that, but yeah, the whole speech was very epic.
Yeah. Agreed. And I just kind of having this thought like right now. So this hasn't marinated at all, and it might not even make sense. But since the Raven Queen is Ruidus born, and like we said, they may have been contemporaries. No, no, I don't think. Like I said, I'm just now thinking of this. I was gonna say, could they maybe be working together, and this was some like ultra long plan for the Raven Queen to like take out all the other gods as well? But then I don't think that they would have needed to like trick Vax if that was the case. Like why
Yeah,
she maybe would just willingly have provided the divinity. So that's
yeah,
probably
no.
that's probably not the case.
I will say Matron of Ravens is probably, hey, are you gonna loop me in on this? Like, or I loved your short about Vecna. I wasn't even there, you know.
Yeah.
So, but
Which one thing that could kind of make sense, and I don't know if this is me going too far, but one thing we had talked about was if this really is like this apocalyptic god-ending, world-ending event maybe happening, why aren't the gods more present in helping finish this? And we talked about how they're not omniscient and stuff, so there's the plausibility of them maybe being in the dark, but another reason could be if they knew their divinity was required. And so they were staying, like, they're not going to send any of
oh,
their champions because then Ludinus might have what he needs. So there could be that aspect to kind of explain it,
I
which
like
is,
that.
why
Yeah,
he had to set up this whole Keyleth thing.
yeah, and maybe I don't know like the rules with Vax, but maybe he even acted outside the authority of the Matron of Ravens. Like maybe she doesn't even realize that he's. I don't know what's happened with Vax, by the way.
Yeah.
Again, I'm only kind of assuming. So I
So
don't know if
yeah.
me saying that makes sense, but
So yeah, just to for those of you, just to recap, Blake didn't see all of campaign 1, and so I'm trying to, I don't want to like out, like, I think there are some implications here, and I'll just let those be there unless you want me to like just straight up tell you. And that also goes for, if we do get there, I'll give a spoiler warning, I guess.
well,
But for
I mean
now we're just going to flirt
the
around it, I guess.
players the players even said some things in the moment that I was like, oh my gosh, Vax, what? What? He's
Yeah.
oh so
Well, he
Um,
is the champion of the Raven Queen,
yeah, I
and
guess we could just leave it at that. I mean,
yeah, I mean, he obviously loves Keyleth, which
yeah,
you could kind of get the hints of from the first couple seasons of Vox Machina. So there's just a lot of reasons that all that like really made sense, and of course, how epic it was. But one kind of last thing on the whole Vax aspect, unless you've got something else. But what got me kind of thinking is that he is this lens, which we know they needed, and we know there was a similar lens that Morrigan made. Now I don't think they are like 1-to-1 equivalents. Um, I guess there's a chance they are, but it didn't seem like it didn't seem like that was like a piece of divinity that they had with that first lens that Ashton broke. Still, that being the case, I'm wondering if there's any type of correlation between the fact that the divinity one was like created out of a person in a way. I wonder if the Morgan lens was like someone,
yeah.
like if she and if so, who? And it's kind of and it's a long shot, but that makes it all the more kind of tragic the fact that they just broke it on the ground for no reason, essentially.
I mean, knowing her as the collector, I mean, who knows what, you know, poor thing she had set
Yeah.
aside to let's make you into a mirror. Like,
Rip.
whatever happened to that? Oh, we just threw it out. You what?
Oh.
That was
Yikes.
the fourth princess of the third dynasty of the Heartmore. Like, oh, okay.
The world is doomed.
Yeah, I do think there's something to be said about, they could have just found a vestige and used that as like a symbol of divinity. The fact that it couldn't be a vestige, like it couldn't be an artifact, it needed to be Vax, to me just communicates how much more important this essence of divinity or authentic or powerful it needed to be,
Mhm.
to power this, Malleus key. So, um, and like I said earlier, what it even means for Vax now. So,
Yeah. Yeah, okay, that's one last thing, is I don't think he's dead, for lack of a better word to use here. Um, but I don't know, like, is he stuck in that form unless someone intervenes in some way? Is he used up,
yeah.
like, as the power source? I'm very curious, and I don't know if it doesn't seem like we're gonna get that answer, at least anytime soon.
Hmm.
So yeah, I too am curious. I'm curious what happened to everyone else there. Did
Right.
like Keyleth, Bo, Caleb, and whoever else may have been there, the statue of Ren, did they all get teleported away? Um,
Yeah. What do you think was the teleporting? Like, what do you think that was?
I don't know. Like it. My best random guess is that with the ley line energy and all this magical force just happening, is maybe just this explosion of magic in the moment, and maybe of many forms that can take, maybe teleportation is one of them. Maybe they teleported to other Nexus points in the
Yeah.
past or something. Like maybe there's some rhyme or reason to where they went. But as far as like why that even happened, I don't know beyond just magic bomb.
Well, if it's random, then like, does that mean Autohan is like, oh, I'm at Taste of Tal'Dorei all of a sudden? Like, like,
Yeah, like yeah,
are all
did
the villains ported too? I mean, I don't know.
yeah, I don't know. It doesn't seem like it would have been anything intentional by like Ludinus.
Right.
Like I don't think he would have, he would have just
Could
like
it
killed them probably. I don't
could
know.
it have been something intentional by Liliana that
That's
has
possible.
just sort of like in these last moments, like just wanting to make sure that Imogen and her friends are okay, and she, you know,
Yeah, maybe
was
didn't
like,
have
"What-"
really control of like where they went because of
yeah,
the surge of stuff. Yeah, like I could see something like that.
yeah, maybe it's surging, and and even with like the wibbly wobbly of like all the ley lines and energy, like she kind of just sends them out, and they end up where they end up. Um, I could see that happening.
Yeah.
That way that at least makes sense. Like why? Because it'd be weird now if the excavation site's empty and everyone's like trying to get back there. you know.
Yeah, I think at the very least, Ludinus is still there,
Right, right.
and probably
Um,
Liliana. But as far as the other just like randos, they well, yeah, like you said, if it was Liliana, then I don't think she would have teleported anyone else.
right.
So maybe they're all
So,
still there. I don't know.
and I'm also like wondering, what does this next episode even look like with them in
Yeah,
such drastically different places? Like they're on, I don't know the map off the top of my head, but they are, so one
yeah.
group's in Marquette still, right? Since they can see, or is it implied they could be, hundreds of miles away, but it's that massive at an event that they can see it?
Are you? We're talking about
Orem,
the
Ashton, and
right.
Laudna.
So we don't know where they
Right.
are. Like anyone's just guessing right now. But I was looking at the map, thinking about this, and I hope this is the. I think it was Wit from the Discord named one place he thought it was, and I think he might be onto something. There's this place called, I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right because I don't think it's ever been like uttered in the show, but the Pools of Witback,
Yeah.
which
Okay.
is like it's like these sulfurous kind of geothermal pools, and Matt described like a sulfurous smell and like pools.
Yeah.
Um, and
Where is
it's
that?
not on Marquette, it's on Taldore, but that's still like probably close enough to see the moon still, you know. So I like
Yeah.
that guess. I think that's a pretty good guess, and it's near Terra, which I don't think is super relevant, but it is at least somewhat
Mm.
plot relevant since we just had that moment with it, you know. So maybe they could go there. And Ashton's there, which we know he has some at least some sort of vague connection to the Ashari via the
Right.
Hishari. So like maybe that could be a plot thread for him if they end up going to Terra. Maybe he could find out more. So that could be a possible connection.
Where
But yeah,
is
it's in northern Taldore,
oh, northern. Okay.
like almost the
Yeah.
very top, in like in those mountains. Yeah, I don't know what map
Oh,
you're looking
okay.
at, but
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. I can't see it on it because this map cuts off like the very top, but that makes sense because I was thinking like, oh, are they like near Neardalpak or something? Like, like what's,
yeah.
I thought they were maybe on the southern side. But that makes sense though.
Well, again,
Okay.
they could be like it could be anywhere. That's just a guess.
Yeah.
Um, but it
Interesting.
at least makes sense for a few reasons. And then the freaking other group is half the world away in freaking the Crystal Sands tundra. So
And that's in Wildmount, right?
that is in Wildmount, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Like almost, I mean, I don't know how the spherical nature of Exandria works, but looking at a flat map at least, don't tell F.C.G. That's like almost as far as you could possibly be from Marquette. But again, granted the circular world, maybe it's not that far, but we know that they at least can't see Ruidus, so um they're
Yeah.
far. And we spoke about the teleportation in general, so we don't really have the answer there. So we don't really have the answer as to why they are where they are. But again, because we're playing D&D, you can obviously kind of infer some level of meta
Mm.
behind it, and clearly they're really close to Uthadurn, which is where Chetney's from. So I think we might be leading into, I mean, obviously they're not about to go like, let's go work on Chetney's backstory because, you know, they got to deal with this freaking solstice still. But I still think inevitably we might get some discovery there,
Right.
which I'm excited for. And I know I'm rambling, so stop me or cut me off if you have anything while I'm just going off here. But given the teleportations, one thing I thought was really interesting is all the established relationships have kind of been split by this. Like Imogen and Laudna are not together. Ashton
Right.
and FCG are not together.
But Ashton and Laudna are together.
Oh right, yeah. Orm and Fern not together. Um,
Yeah.
and so yeah, I'm really interested to see what happens here. The first thing that came to my mind when this occurred was the Trials of the Take from campaign one. Which if you didn't see campaign one, um, what happened is they basically split the group, and for like a little chunk of episodes, like half the group, like an episode of Critical Role would be half the main cast and a couple of guests, and that was it. The other half of the cast wasn't there. And then like the next episode would be the other half of the cast
Mm.
and a couple guests, and they kind of did their own thing, and then they re-met back up. So I'm wondering if we might get something similar to that. I don't think that that has to be the case, because there are ways that they could reconvene quasi quickly if they needed to. And I'm not saying I'm just saying, like, with D&D in this, in the sake of these things, like there would be a way for that to be the case, even though it doesn't seem like they have anybody that could.
Yeah,
It's not
I
like
mean
they
they
can
don't
just
have an
call
airship
Rin.
anymore. Yeah,
Right. Um so it at least could be plausible that maybe we get a little trial of the take-esque scenario here, maybe one episode of one group, one episode of the other, and maybe we get
how
some
many episodes
guests.
do you think? I mean, we'll know more this Thursday, but how many? Like, is this like a 10 episode arc in your mind, or like what do you think?
Of just like the solstice in general, or just of them being split, you mean?
Split up, split up.
I don't know. I mean, I wouldn't see it being that long.
Yeah, okay.
I could
And
see
then
like maybe one or two
and
each.
then
Like, so 2 to 4 total each, maybe.
yeah, and then in terms of the solstice, is that potentially going to end this next episode?
I don't think so.
How long does the solstice last?
I think it lasts a couple days.
Yeah, okay.
I don't know
Okay.
though. Don't quote me on that, but I think it lasts a couple days. Um Speaking of, I'm kind of going to jump back really quick just for this one thing, and then we can come back, but a moment during the ritual, if you will, where Ludinus like time freezes everyone and the stars start shifting by, hours passing in moments. What's your take on what was happening there? Because it seemed like a time stop or a time fast forward situation. But did he freeze the whole planet? Because we still know Keyleth showed up. We know the airships showed up. So if only the concentrated area of the Malleus Key was frozen, then Keyleth and those airships seemingly would have showed up during the time fast forward. So is the
Right.
implication that everyone froze? Or at least
I
maybe like everyone within a certain radius, and those, you know?
I'm not sure because there was also a question to Matt after this happened, which was how much time has it been in terms of like has it been an hour? Like is Keyleth almost here? And Matt said, yeah, it's been almost an hour.
Yeah.
And I think that was after the freeze.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I kind of got like that. What's that Marvel show?
Moon Knight?
With yeah, Moon Knight. I got kind of Moon Knight vibes of like, controlling the stars, and
Mm-hmm.
because ultimately it seemed like he wanted to put Rudis right over
Like right
them.
above the key, yeah.
But Matt's phrasing was hours seem to pass by in seconds. So I don't know. I have no idea, honestly.
Yeah.
So
It might be one of those things where it's not really like, it was
yeah.
more about a thematic cool moment and getting Rudis where he needed it to be, more than like a literal temporal
Mhm.
adjustment spell. So I think I'm okay with that. But I was just curious what your thoughts on that were.
So
Um
something going back to what we were talking about with the party split, though. Something you said got me thinking because you
yeah.
mentioned like in the past they've done like this cast is here for this session, and there's some guest characters. So if Orem, Laudna, and Ashton are in Taldore, could we be having little crown keepers meet up? Maybe.
Potentially. That is last we heard that's where they were, right? Or do we even know?
I don't know. I didn't. Yeah, I have no idea,
I th-
honestly.
I think
So
that's I think that's where they are. But yeah, I mean, if they do the split party thing, which they might not, then it would only make sense to bring in some extra faces,
like, what
like
if we
rather
had?
than just
Yeah.
have the other half of the cast sitting there for 4 hours.
So we'd have Opal join the table, and we'd have Dorian join the table. Maybe Dariax joins the table,
And
and
somebody else
old
DMs, or
Brennan
just
Lee Mulligan steps in as fire. I don't know. I think it could be really interesting, though, what happens in the next, obviously this next episode, but especially a couple after that. Um, I will say I am surprised that no one died. For it being for what was happening, I thought for sure we were heading towards an Autohan fight, which we didn't get. or some kind of mega battle, which didn't happen.
Yeah,
Which isn't a criticism. I think there was a moment where mass heal or cure wounds was cast on everybody,
Keyleth jumped
and
in.
yeah, and it was kind of like that was nice, but no one really
No
needed
one really
it.
needed it. Yeah,
Though interesting that she even didn't she also heal like even the wounded bad guys too
yeah.
or
I
something?
think because I think, don't quote me on this, but I think that heals like X amount of people. So I guess she probably,
Oh, okay.
since like the Bell's Hells didn't need it, she just healed
Yeah.
the people that
Yeah.
were
Well,
hurt by the
so,
skyship thing.
but yeah, no, it was interesting. It was kind of like we talked a lot about them heading into this and how like crazy dangerous it was. Ended up not being really that. They had some great roles when it mattered, like the deception roles, but ended up not being too bad though.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Is it could have gone so much differently, you know? Like if they fail that very first deception check, like it's on, right? You know, like what are they gonna do? Like their best guess is that they are somewhere secluded and they can just kill those people and maybe like reinitiate the stealth mission. Um, and obviously it's just pure speculation because you know what happened happened. But I can only imagine that if that had happened and if they weren't lucky enough to like return to being stealth, maybe they would be captured similarly to how Bo and Caleb were and kind of just
Yeah.
forced to sit there and watch.
Which, by
Um,
the way, when both those, because they rolled twice, when both of them were just bad rolls, I was like, oh, great. Something's happening to Bo and Caleb now.
yeah, I know.
So,
I know. I don't think any of so as far as Bo, Caleb, and Keyleth, I don't think any of them are gonna have died off screen. It's just I don't see
I don't
that
think so.
happening. So I know
Yeah.
some people were worried about like they might all be dead. Not to say that they're perfectly guaranteed safe when this is all said and done, but I at least don't think they're dead from what happened at the end of the episode.
There was a weird like power disconnect though. Like having seen in the Ukatoa fight, Caleb turning into a literal dragon and being like this massive damage dealer. And him just getting like grabbed out of the air. I was kind of like already like I kind of just expected more to happen from him. Which I think obviously we probably don't have time to like make it Caleb's show, I guess.
Hmm.
But also I think it does give a little bit of a testament to how powerful these bad guys are. Liliana, who we haven't really had much of a demonstration from, but we know Ludinus is probably like level 20 plus. Maybe Liliana is as well if she's
Yeah,
been
she
working
was
with him
doing
for all
some
these
impressive
years.
things, so I think she's high level.
Yeah, so
But
not
yeah,
only
the
a criticism, but yeah,
um,
I guess I was surprised a little bit. So
so I think, and again to what you said, like it wasn't about to be Caleb and Bo saved the
I
day. Like
need everyone to
let's
leave
see,
the table and
yeah,
Marisha and Oram or Marisha and Liam, you guys stick around.
yeah. So
It's like 3 hours later.
you guys did it. Well, we'll see you guys next week.
Yeah,
So obviously that wasn't going to happen, but I think some of it was informed by their roles, which were terrible.
yeah,
You
they
know,
were.
like I think
Yeah.
I think there was at least the potential of them maybe not getting caught in the way that they got caught. Again, not to say they would have prevented anything, but maybe they just would have been off screen still, and we wouldn't know what was going on with
Yeah.
them. And I talked about it in the thing, but since you didn't see campaign 2, you might not have known what was going on. But like that collar that they put around him, those are like you can't do anything. So
Oh, okay.
like he obviously there's the whole point of well, how did it get the collar on him in the first place? And fair, but again, they rolled terribly, so maybe that had something to do with it. But yeah, once that collar was on, he was basically inert. Um, and Bo actually, I did see this criticism. Bo, being a high level monk, has an ability. I think it's called like silence your mind or something like that, which basically means you can't be charmed. So I know some people
Oh,
were all like really upset that Bo was seemingly being like mind controlled.
yeah.
Which one, we don't know what was happening there. We don't know what spell or what effect that was. Maybe it was something that's not considered a charm and therefore her ability wouldn't work. But even then, I don't really think it matters. Like this was obviously, again, it's not the Bo and Caleb show. So whether she was charmed, I think that was just a cool moment to have her like, oh, Caleb's captured and oh, here's Bo, but oh god, she's being like she's out of commission too. Like it could have just as easily been Caleb's gripped by the Mindhunter Golem and Bo is already in chains being pushed down. Like, it's
Yeah.
just more of a flavor thing that I don't think people need to be getting upset about.
Well, I mean, and again, yeah, I mean, I'd say just trust the game. I mean, for all we know, Matt has like a pocket ninth level charm spell that's like, can't be resisted in that way.
Yeah.
Similar to like, disenchant isn't a five, it's not a 5e spell, and yet Brennan used it in Calamity,
Yeah.
So it's, and maybe people did get mad then. I don't know, but I'd say like, I'd say not to worry about that. If you're watching this and that annoyed you, it's not a big deal.
Yeah.
So
Agreed. And I'm kind of, do you have something? I was kind of shifting a little bit.
no, I don't. I want to shift and talk about the ritual and Ruidus at some point, and that's kind of my last thing to hit on.
Okay. That just reminded me of something. I'm gonna knock that out really quick. One thing that was really fun, and I know you're not on like really on Twitter or anything, but the Critical Role account over the past starting I think last Thursday, they changed their profile picture, and it's been the Critical Role logo, but like I think it's been like once a day the logo changes and it's getting more and more red, like it's being overtaken by red.
What?
Um,
Oh, that's
and
cool.
I think it'll
Okay,
either be
yeah.
fully red today or tomorrow. I haven't checked recently, so it might have already
It's
adjusted again.
it's still a sliver
Okay,
of
yeah.
red.
So there's like
I
one
mean, of
more.
blue. Wow,
And
that's cool.
so that was fun. And then in the Twitch chat last Thursday, there was kind of this movement within the Twitch chat to everyone change their name to red, because you can like adjust your
Yeah,
Twitch appearance. So that was cool. So like obviously there were a few standouts, but like mostly all the Twitch chat was red. And in the Discord we got in on the fun, and I changed everyone's name to red in our live discussion. Um, so I
that's
just
pretty
thought those
cool.
were little fun things. But the
By
other,
the way,
go ahead.
or sorry, I was just going to mention on the Critical Role um, official Twitter, they've also been tweeting out this
Yeah,
archivist notes. Have you been
yeah,
seeing that?
yeah.
I was
So
looking at
every
it
time
now,
they
but
do one of those tweets, that's when they change the thing too.
okay,
So
I
yeah, I'm
gotcha.
interested to see what like the last two of those notes are going to be. Um, but kind of on a meta level, one thing I wanted to talk about is just one we already talked about, like how fun this episode was for the cast, and um, they all seem to have such a great time. But bro, as a DM, especially you and I have both DM'd, I can only imagine how like satisfying and fun this was for Matt,
Oh
because
yeah,
this is something, and we don't know exactly how long he's had this in his back pocket, at least the exact details of what's happening here. But the Ruidus thing, like Ruidus was in campaign 1. Like I think this is like a grand plot that he's had marinating for years.
hmm
And so just to like and I know you can relate to this, and I'm sure a lot of you guys that have DM'd can relate to this, but like you'll just be, if you're homebrewing your world or just figuring out the quest line or whatever, you'll have this like grand idea and you're like, oh my gosh, this will be so cool. But you have these grand ideas, but you got to build up to them. So like I can
right.
only imagine, because I've never really had that satisfaction of a DM of like the really long term
Yeah, right.
payoff. So I could just only imagine how satisfying this would be to like have this moment finally come to fruition.
Yeah,
Um, and I
yeah.
don't
I
I don't really
mean,
have anything beyond that to say, but it just
no,
was.
I mean, I think it's sad to say, probably many of us as DMs have never got to experience that.
Yeah,
Since most groups end up, dying off. But
yeah,
I do think about, that process of like when you're really just like indulging in the long term story, and you kind of know in the back of your mind your players will never get to experience this.
yeah,
But for Matt, yeah, 8 years, 8 year anniversary, and he got to play out a scenario that he had built up and given nods to over the years, and I'm happy for him. I think it's great when a D&D group gets to experience something like that. And I think if there is any criticism around bringing in old characters, like, oh, there's Vax or whatever, um, when you design it from the get go to be this massive story with all these massive characters that continue to show up, it only makes sense. It only makes sense to bring these characters back. Like we're finishing we just finished the second to last episode session of this 6-month mini campaign we've done with my group, where I'm a
Mhm.
player, not the DM. And now everyone's gotten so involved with their characters. Now I'm already looking, when I take the reins back over, like, how can I do nods to those characters, and how would they get involved with like sort of the global things that are happening? Because if it's a living, breathing world, like, why would your character be isolated away from? And that way, it kind of feels kind of frail and fragile when they aren't engaging. So
Mhm.
um, I think hats off to them. It's a really great thing for them.
Yeah. And there's obviously, not that we need to get into this whole discussion, but there's obviously like good ways to do that and poor ways to do it. And I think he's
Yeah,
obviously done it in a good way.
yeah,
And on that note, I think it's he's kind of built this really interesting dynamic now where we did have these very powerful people, excuse me, show up. Which again, within the world, it makes sense for them to show up to try to prevent this apocalypse. But it's like, well, is that going to steal the thunder away from Bell's Hells? This is their story. Now we're in a position where like a lot of those big powerful people have been taken off the board, and like
yeah.
it's on Bell's Hells now. They've scattered to the winds, but like they're one of few people that like know what's happening, and they're one of few people set up to actually do something about it. So I think that anyone that had those criticisms shouldn't have had them anyway, but they definitely shouldn't have them now, because now the spotlight is directly on these low level misfits to try to make something happen here.
And we got a lot of runway left. I mean, episode 51's in the books. If this campaign goes to 150, we're only a third of the way. There's a lot that
Yeah.
will need to happen, and I think it only fits to take these other people off the board, so to speak, because otherwise it's kind of this constant. If Keyleth has already been established as, oh, I'll just call Keyleth from like the get go, then as the stakes get larger and larger, it becomes more of an oddity that Keyleth isn't involved.
Hmm.
So I agree with you. I think it's great that by the first 50 episodes, these characters have been given nods to, and I don't want to say like fully dealt with, because we don't know what's quite happened, but at least dealt with in some way, that the focus remains on this is Bell's Hell's story.
Yeah, and it seems like, again, I don't think those characters are dead, so I think that we could still see Keyleth and
Right.
whoever play a role in this story, and they might be the ones that have to deal with Ludinus, because I don't see I don't see Bell's Hells like ever getting strong enough to deal with him unless he's like severely weakened, which I guess he has only one hand now, unless that can be
Yeah.
healed. But it seems like, I'm not saying she's the big bad, but it seems like Odahan is definitely going to be their boss fight for this
Yeah. I
part of
think
the story.
I think Adahan is the nearest big bad to fight. I don't think she's the ultimate big bad. I think there
Agreed.
will be maybe even Liliana, and maybe some form or element related to Predathos. I don't know.
Yeah.
But speaking of Predathos,
Yeah.
we have this event, this explosion of magical energy. Orem and company can now see it. Ruidus kind of beset over the excavation site. The beam's still
Going.
present.
Yeah.
Best guess as to what's going on there.
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought this up, because I did want to talk about the implications of exactly what happened here. Because, like I mentioned earlier, this is something we speculated about. Like, is this a no-win scenario? Can they do this? Can they impact it in some way? And not to retread that, but I think they did. I think they did impact it. We even had the dialogue from Ludinus being like, I don't remember what he said, but like, there's, well, this will have to do or whatever. So I think what they accomplished in ridding those power cores and stuff did did I don't know, like maybe they didn't, the floodgates weren't completely opened, let's call it. And maybe now there's still time to somewhat like turn this off. Like maybe there's still time to fully present Prodathos from breaking out, if you will. Um but in any case, I think they made an impact, and that leaves some sort of window for them to operate in. So I don't know what that means exactly. Like, yes, I don't really know where they go from
Yeah.
here. I imagine they're going to try to get back there,
Yeah.
I guess. I think that over the next couple days or whatever it might be, like is that beam of light like breaking the prison, if you will, and if it completes, the prison will be fully broken. In any case, I think there's going to be, again, I'm just kind of speaking generally here, a hole in the defenses, if you will. So I think if not Predathos himself like fully emerging, maybe these Ray Laura are going to like now be able to come through. We know there's a city on Ruidus, maybe if not Ray Laura, whatever inhabitants are there are going to
Mhm.
have more of an influence. I think there's going to be some form of that stuff. I would imagine there is going to be somewhat of a possibility to prevent the full
Mhm.
immersion of Predathos. I think that's on the table still, but I also kind of hope he gets out, honestly, just to see just to see like what that
Yeah.
would mean and what
I'm
happens
not
there.
saying I want to see it, but yeah, but the kind of what I wondered would be like these next few episodes, would it be kind of like getting back together, kind of winding up to whatever's next? But like, what if this next episode is the start of the next calamity? And we get point of view from two
Yeah.
different continents, Orum's group, Imogen's group, of just the chaos and insanity of things that are happening. Um, I don't know. I have a hard time seeing Orum, Ashton, and Laudna wanting to go back to the excavation site with just the three of them for how much work it took to get there.
True.
I don't know. I don't know what the plan would be to do that.
I
But
guess the
also
Go
it
ahead.
it seems like this has to be resolved though in the next
Right.
day or two, however long the Apogee Solstice is. I don't know how long it is. So
Yeah, I mean, I guess the good news is they can message each other. And
true.
so
Yeah.
they'll very quickly know that
Yeah.
everyone's at least okay, and maybe they can figure out where each other are. But yeah, I'm really curious to see like what their first moves are. Like
Yeah.
I would guess they're going to go to Uthadurn, that one group, just because it's like the closest point of
Yeah.
civilization. But what's interesting is, so Uthadurn is near there, but also the Savalier Wood and the ruins of Molesmere, that city
Oh
we've
my
talked about,
gosh.
is right there too.
Bro,
So we might get some more information
this is
about like
crazy.
the corruption that we've talked about
Yeah.
there. Maybe some Ludinus information.
Yeah, some Ludinus backstory.
But
Which,
but go ahead.
sorry. No, I was just gonna say, it feels like this is happening because of Ludinus's line, like it's too late to stop me, which is kind of like the cliche, like it's too
Hmm.
late, and then oh, you stopped him. But he seems so certain and unfazed by all of the Vasselheim ships coming in.
Hmm.
Um, is it too late? Is it done?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know.
Yeah. It does. I mean, yeah, I don't know. He did seem pretty confident in that. And I don't. Yeah, maybe it is too late in terms of like Prodathos is gonna get out, but obviously I don't think that means it's too late for like anything to be done about it. Like maybe they can reseal him. Maybe they can, I don't know. But what's interesting is that like we just mentioned with Uthadurn and Molesmere, it's like, yeah, there are these really interesting things there, but do they have time to
Right.
do that? Is it
Yeah.
just going to be let's immediately get back together, and do we go to Vasselheim? Where do they go to Whitestone? Like who's the most powerful person that they I guess they could message Keyleth and be like, are you alive? Like if she
Um,
is, maybe she could quickly reunite them, but she's probably got other priorities right now.
yeah, I'm really curious what they have in terms of spells.
Oh, thank you for saying that. They did level up. I don't know if you saw.
Oh, I know, baby.
Okay. So they're all level 9. Let me while you're looking up whatever you're looking up,
Okay.
let me roll over what happened. So yeah, they just put out a video today of them leveling up and rolling their health. So we know that Ashton took another level in Barbarian, Aurum Fighter, Imogen Sorcerer, Fern Druid, F.C.G Cleric, Laudna Sorcerer, Chet Bloodhunter. So they all took their, well, with the exception of Laudna. Well, they all took their main class. Laudna took another Sorcerer, not Warlock. Aurum did mention that his passive perception is now 31, which what? Um, but so yeah, are you looking up maybe like what some of them get at level 9 or whatever?
I already have all that up. I was looking to see what spells they got because I think at level 9 they get a 5th level spell. I'm
Okay.
pretty sure. Um, teleportation circle
Does sorcerers
is
get that?
it is it just says the school. Yes, sorcerer. Yeah, sorcerers get
So
it.
so Imogen could potentially have that now.
She could, yeah, but it also is labeled as the Arcana domain, so maybe that's for like a certain subclass. But yeah, available for sorcerers. So yeah, Imogen could have it, and they could, boop, teleport. I don't know how that spell works, but anyway, pretty interesting though. Regardless, yeah. So maybe real quick, I can just kind of run through. I don't know
Yeah, yeah.
unless okay, so like you mentioned, Orm took the 9th level in fighter. He got the extra ability score improvement, which he put in his perception, and also the proficiency bonus, which I'm not sure if he is. I think he is proficient then in perception, which gives him that 31, and he gets the indomitable feat, which is you can re-roll a saving throw that you fail. You must use the new roll.
Mm.
So there's that. Ashton took the 9th level in
Barbarian.
Barbarian. That gives him an extra point of damage on rage damage, the proficiency bonus, and then he also gets brutal critical. You can roll 1 additional weapon damage die when determining the extra damage for a critical hit.
Mm.
So it could be pretty spicy.
Yeah.
Um, F.C.G. 9th level in cleric. We know he got his first 5th level spell and proficiency bonus. And anything else that his homebrew class may have gotten, we don't know
Right.
yet.
Right.
Imogen, 9th level in sorcerer, gets her first 5th level spell, an additional sorcery point, additional proficiency bonus. Chetney, 8th level in blood hunter, so he got an ability score improvement. And that's it for him. And then Laudna, I think Laudna took one in sorcerer,
Yeah,
right?
she took
So it was her
sorcerers,
sixth.
which sorcerer 6, I think she is now.
Yeah, so she got an extra sorcery point, an extra 3rd level spell, and then her sorceress origin feature, which we'll have to see what that is. That might be kind of interesting. And then I don't know the level span for Fern, by the way. Like how much of it
Fern
is
is 8 druid, 1 rogue.
8 druid, 1 rogue?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, great. So she got her wild shape improvement and ability score
Nice.
improvement. So yeah. So she doesn't. So notably, that 10th level is gonna be so important for her because she can get Revivify at
Oh,
level 10, but she can't. She took a point in Rogue. She doesn't have it now, but F.C.G. can get Revivify
right now?
right now.
Mm. I also saw he can get greater restoration, which I don't they're not near Rin anymore, but I think that would cure Rin.
Mm.
Maybe not. I don't know if that like redeems
Oh
Petrify.
wait, no, he already has a Revivify. I'm thinking of
The next
yeah, because they already
the
had it
more
because he already
powerful
used it.
resurrection.
Yeah, because he already used it when
Right. Is
they
it
used the diamonds.
so that just the
So
he there is that the next level is there. That's just not what it's called. Is it like true resurrection or something? I think that's
yeah,
higher level.
let's see. I don't know what I'm thinking of.
Raised dead?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what I'm thinking of. Why did I say that? Let's see. Reincarnate, raised dead. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Huh.
Raised dead at level 5. Reincarnate at level 5 for druids.
Oh yeah. So Fern
So
already had that then, right? Or she at least had access to it.
no, it's a 5th level
Oh,
spell.
fifth level spell.
So
Fifth level spell.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So she'll get reincarnate. And uh FCG now has raised dead.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. So those are big. The teleportation circle's big. Um, I wonder. Yeah, there's so many. it doesn't seem like they're just going to instantly reconnect. I mean, I guess
Right.
they could. I mean, obviously anything's on the table, but it feels more interesting, especially since there was a deliberateness to Matt splitting them in this way, that there's a purpose to it, right? So I imagine they're not going to instantly reconnect, but I guess they at least could potentially with Imogen's abilities, or maybe now that it's quote unquote done, maybe they could even get Liliana to come. Hey, mom, can you come teleport us back? You
Just
know,
come get
that
us.
probably won't happen, but
Yeah, I don't think
um,
so. Could get a message though to Liliana, which would be interesting.
yeah, I think that's got to be the first thing they do. Is a bunch of messages are going to get sent out. You know,
Yeah.
probably to Keyleth. But yeah, it'll be so curious to see what the first
Yeah.
move is here. But sorry, real quick, they leveled up, which we know this because they put out a video like they usually do of them rolling. And I know you can't read too much into this, but they're all at the table together. So at the very least, it's not as if half the cast isn't even coming to the studio, and we're gonna if we got like a trials of the take situation where half of them are there and maybe a few guests. Everyone is at least in the building.
Yeah.
So not that we can draw any conclusions from that, but I figured I'd throw it out there regardless.
So we have this week's episode, I think presumably next week's episode, and then the 30th off, right? So 2 more episodes
I think
before break.
so. And I
Okay.
know that after this week's, they're doing four-sided dive, which they put off. They put it off and said we're going to do it after this episode instead, and everyone's going to be there. So I know that scared a lot of people like 2 weeks ago when they announced that. So that'll
That's after tomorrow's episode?
yeah. It's not
Oh, I
like
don't like
it's not
that.
on Friday, but like it's I think they come out on
Yeah.
Tuesday, so it'll be next Tuesday that comes out. I think.
Okay. That makes me nervous.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting. All right. Well, anything else you want to talk about?
I don't think so, but let me give one
Okay.
quick scan on the notes really quick. Oh,
So while he's looking at that,
yeah, go
or
ahead.
you go ahead. You go
No,
ahead.
no, go ahead.
I was gonna say, you guys, if you had other things you wanted us to, or you want to weigh in on some things that you've been thinking about, or some theories, or what have you, don't forget to jump into our Discord and share some of that with us. We'd be happy to engage with you there and chat with you a little bit, and also leave your comments down below as to what you think's going on, because we don't always reply to them all, but we do actually read almost all of them, and we also make sure to give credit to you guys who have really awesome uh, thoughts on what's happening. So
Yeah, absolutely. And like I mentioned earlier, you know, it's Wednesday, so tomorrow's a new episode. There will be a group of us chatting along during the episode. Would love for you to join us. The only other thing that I wanted to briefly mention on is when the moment happened that Matt described, you know, everything goes white. One thing he says is a familiar white. What do you
I
think that
think
means?
I think it has to be back to the Autohan fight. Remember when Imogen did like the unleash Ruidus energy
Mm-hmm.
that like blew Autohan back, and then there was like an explosion that like leveled the city block, but then
Mm.
he said like white, and everyone kind of had like their flashback.
Ooh, yeah.
You know, like I kind of wonder if that's what he's referencing.
That's interesting. I didn't think about that. And I didn't remember that it was described that way, but that makes a lot of sense. But that worries me because that whole city block was leveled. So is the site of the excavation site just
Gone.
and maybe Imogen, maybe Liliana, like you said, maybe just the chaos then randomness of the event, but because in that moment wasn't it described as Imogen's power that safely teleported her friends away in that Autohan moment, so they didn't get
Oh.
exploded, or no?
Oh,
I
I
feel
don't
like it was
remember
something like that.
actually. Yeah, that's a great question. I'm not totally sure,
So
honestly.
I want if so, I wonder if that's what happened here. Be it Imogen, be it
Yeah.
Liliana, be it
Yeah.
whatever. If this was like a flux of Ruidus magic and there was some intention from whoever to
Right.
make sure these certain people are safe, um,
Right.
that would be
Yeah.
really interesting.
All right. Well, we'll find out tomorrow night.
We'll find out
So
soon.
stay tuned, I guess. So, thumbnail.
All right, I think it's got to be just like, oh my god, from the
Yeah.
Vax moment for me.
Yeah, for
All
sure.
right.
Yeah, okay. Ready?
Yeah.
All right, hey, we appreciate you guys. Don't forget to check our sub giveaway, 5,000 subs giveaway on the channel. Make sure you leave a comment. Any comment you want, we'll do. Even what you ate for lunch today, which is what I'm thinking of because I didn't eat lunch today. Other than that, I think that'll do it. So, see you guys.
Have a good one, y'all.